Black Ops 6 has been out for over 2 weeks now, and as we gear up for Season 1, we're about to have launch 2.0 essentially, but hopefully not a 2.0 like Warzone 2's launch. But anyways, while we've had a bit of time to play, today I want to take a look at a few mistakes that you may be making still and how to correct them, because watching back some footage while editing, looking at my progression of things, Lord knows that I've been making quite a few mistakes that just even trying to improve my own game, I figured, hey, we could probably talk about it and perhaps help some other people out in the process. So that said, let me know your thoughts down below. What's a mistake you feel like you've been making in Black Ops 6? Let me know, and make sure to drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 6. We're closing in on 600,000 subscribers, just over 4,000 subscribers away, so if you'd like to join the community, if you're a part of that nearly 75% of viewers not subscribed, I'd truly love to have you along for the ride. Anyways, let's get into it. First, before we jump into the game itself, let's talk about some progression mistakes you may be making. One of the big ones that a lot of people will probably be making is the misuse of a permanent unlock token. Every single prestige, when you do prestige, you'll end up getting that permanent unlock token for any item along the progression track. That goes for weapons, perks, streaks, field upgrades, equipment, all that kind of stuff. But for me, having slowed down consciously on my prestige grind through 6 prestiges and the tokens that I've gotten with them, outside of unlocking a few things for camo grinds and consistently working on weapons that like were at the end of that sort of progression, like I did the bat for one, because I just wanted to continuously work on that and not have to stress about doing that in the higher levels. I don't know that I'd realistically unlock any weapons if I were to do it again, just because come the Season 1 Battle Pass and the shop in a few days, most of these weapons will include a blueprint or two through either progression, the shop, or future events. So that means that they'll be automatically unlocked permanently when you get those. Instead, I'd say to use things that aren't granted elsewhere. Perk Greed, Gunfighter, honestly is a huge wild card that I think should absolutely be like in your top 3 for unlocks, especially if you're a Warzone player, because that's going to be huge, giving 8 attachments in Warzone versus 5. Some perks or streaks if you favor those. I've honestly considered unlocking the Chopper Gunner so I can craft it in zombies and get my exfils covered with ease each time I play, as I'm now starting the zombies camo grind. But consider usage cases that will help you long-term throughout the year, not necessarily something that just are one-offs with weapons that, again, will definitely have at some point in the near future secondary unlock methods to be permanently unlocked. Then in progression, the misuse of XP is something that I find myself doing quite a bit, and you probably do as well. And this can be broken down into 2 different ways. Not doing the best options to earn XP in that time efficiency, or just simply not getting enough XP from bonuses. Like, I try to make all my time when I go in worth it. I try and accomplish something, whatever that may be. And for a lot of the times, if I'm playing the wrong mode or map sets or doing the wrong challenge sets, whatever, it just doesn't yield me as much in terms of that time value as compared to what I could be doing. So things like grinding out MP, Nuketown, Face Off versus grinding out the Rampage Inducer for zombies if you want to rank up weapons, or just generally ranking up overall. Doing camo challenges as you go along rather than not. If one player puts 5 days into the game and they just simply use the first 5 weapons that they enjoy versus a player that does everything but also still puts those 5 days of playtime in while doing camos, you're probably going to end up seeing that person that does camos being well further into the progression system, giving you upwards of 2 million XP bonus if you work it out properly with Dark Matter and Nebula accomplished. That then leads into not getting enough bonus XP for things. Doing those challenges, doing things that will consciously give you more in that progression space, obviously will be expanded upon if you can save the big ticket items for things like double weapon XP weekends, or if you end up having double XP tokens. Using those things to, most recently in my mind, having completed Dark Matter, give you the boost for, say, the 7,500 XP per challenge completion for Dark Matter or Dark Spine. You can double that with a double XP token or a double XP weekend every single time you do that. So obviously it expands a lot more in giving you better usage of your XP. Next, let's talk about some mistakes that I've made, at least in the create a class selections. Creation of classes are much more balanced on attributes this year. There's not really many cons for a lot of things. So if you recognize that, each category really favors one attribute more so than the other. Recoil mitigating properties coming from things like your muzzle or underbarrel, bullet velocity and damage range coming from your barrel, rear grips really playing around with that sprint to fire and ADS speeds, or rather this year also slide to fire speeds and dive to fire speeds, your stocks that give you more things like movement speed and strafing movement speed, ADS movement speed, a little bit of flinch mitigating properties, and your laser being things for your hip fire spreads and sometimes some movement to fire properties as well, and your fire mods kind of giving you that mix mixed bag. Things like bullet velocity, rate of fire, some more recoil control, and then some penetration damage for other things as well. So the nice part about this not having too many cons, not having too many things that are dispersed outside of those categories, is that you can better create your own class how you feel comfortable with and making a sort of uniform feeling for your weapon. Ranking up your weapons will allow you to get to that point, so as you rank up first these weapons, it might be a little bit tougher to end up getting to, but then you can start to recognize, hey, this is what I want and this is how I get there. But talking in-game stuff now with this, one of the big things that I make a huge mistake with all the time, and honestly, it makes a lot of the games that you don't see here on YouTube, cuts them a little bit short, because I will rush into way too much when it comes to gunfights and things alike. I'll sprint into gunfights, try and get from point A to point B, and I'll know that there's somebody there, and I'm just like, okay, well, they're clearly gonna have their back to me that I can just sprint right up next to them. But spoiler alert, they usually don't, because why would they turn around if I just took an engagement from that same position? You sprint to that gunfight, and even though you know it could be coming, you're still sprinting, so you're caught in that sprint out time, and that's often enough that will get you killed. Slowing the pace down a little bit, recognizing, hey, especially if you're going to an area where there was just players there, you're trying to get that revenge kill or something like that, make sure you have that gun up and you're ready to go. The time to kill and time to death are wild within this game sometimes. Like, it's not the fastest we've had, but it's something that still feels like you can absolutely get melted. So make sure you end up having yourself ready for that gunfight, and you're ready for the scenarios where, especially if it could be a high traffic area, you're good to go. Don't necessarily rush into something just because you don't see a player there. Centering is also something that I still, even after playing COD and being an FPS veteran for 15 plus years at this point, I'll still find myself doing this, where my crosshair isn't exactly where it should be. Crosshair placement is huge for any FPS game, but it takes a bit of practice and conscious effort to get it in that right location just when you're not expecting a gunfight, like just being able to have that crosshair at chest height or something like that for all engagements. Just going into the firing range can help out tremendously here, trying to keep that placement higher on the chest rather than if you end up, say, looking down at the ground a bit more. There's this sort of odd, almost placebo where, like, you want to see more of, like, what's above as well, so you kind of tend to lean your viewpoint down a little bit. That's something that's happened to me and so many players for years, and it does take a little bit of time to break that habit, but once you do, you're going to be absolutely frying so much more. Not sliding into areas is also something that is a huge mistake, I think, that especially with this game, I notice tremendously. It's going to be kind of counterintuitive almost to the next point that we'll talk about, but utilizing movement can absolutely be beneficial within Black Ops 6. And I mean this in a sort of controlled sense, as we'll touch on again in the next point. But anytime that I'm sort of in this flow state where I just feel like I can do no wrong, where I'm gonna gun everybody in my path, I'm feeling it that game, I'll always be sliding from position to position. This makes it so much harder for an enemy to track you. Even the best of players will have a tough time keeping up with that positional change of going from where you're in a standing position to crouched into that slide, that pacing adjustment of then where you get that sort of little movement speed boost whenever you do go to slide, and then sliding into, say, a head glitch or around some sort of cover, giving you that solid cover makes it even more unapproachable for a player to take that gunfight against you. So it can be incredibly beneficial if you do it properly. So if you're moving from point A to point B, get that quick little sprint boost and then just slide into it, and you'll end up helping out so many different scenarios. But on the flip side, doing way too much can be a huge mistake as well. You don't need to go crazy if it's not needed. Like, there's a time to use and not to use movement within this game. Frankly, I really do enjoy Omni movement for the directional portion of it, where I can end up keeping that momentum sideways or backwards as well as forward, and I can end up also like jumping or sliding each of those different ways. I feel like you have way more control with the slide that rather than the dive. So like the diving portion, I don't really use too much. I don't really care too much for it because it just, I feel like, doesn't give me as much control over that fluidity of the movement. Ultimately, it comes down to knowing when to use and when not to use that movement. Sometimes simply just shooting an enemy is effective. You don't have to do all this extra special stuff. Like, we already showcased some of the clips where players are doing far too much and you can just like stand there and shoot them. If they want to be TikTok movement demons, let them. If you have the good aim, or they're not in cover or anything, or going behind things that end up breaking aim assist or whatever, it's going to be insanely easy to take them out. So all you got to do is just recognize, hey, maybe I shouldn't end up going overboard with that movement. Now, some other mistakes and tips here. Solo play, I'll beat this point as much as I can. Playing in a party, I think, greatly helps your case in not only gaining information on where enemies can be, like you're just playing with your friends and having a good time, talking about whatever it is, having a good laugh, chilling in Discord, having a drink or something like that while you're playing, and just truly taken a lot more casual because you're just talking with friends, but it also allows you to get more information on where enemies are. One of your friends can spot them, call them out, whatever the case. But I've said it time and time again, I think that solo play kind of died with Modern Warfare 2019 and the inclusion of the matchmaking system that we have right now. So not only just in the sense of getting more information out of your party, but I think the sweet spot is that you can kind of brute force your way into some matches based off of that is like 2 to 4 players. Playing solo sometimes can be a mistake and not be as enjoyable. So just for the sake of enjoying yourself playing the game, if you have some friends to play with, I think it's always beneficial to do so. And then the final thing is one dumb one for me. Anytime I prestige, I just never remember to check my streaks and change them. I'll end up being like well into level 40 of a prestige and be like, crap, I still have that Recon Pulse, Archangel Rocket, and the Chopper Gunner. Like the default stuff that really, there's just so many better things that I could use, but I always forget it going back and forth between modes and things like that. So those are some mistakes that I've made personally in the last 2 weeks, and maybe you have as well, that maybe just recognizing these things and taking some of these tips can help better your experience. So that's going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this? Is there any mistake you find yourself making that you know how to correct? Feel free to drop it down below. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. Of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 6 as we gear up for Season 1 in just a couple of days' time. A lot more reveals on deck here over the coming days leading up to that. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.